Welcome to Flight Past. My name is Simon. We are in the Huey, and we're over the battlefield of Waterloo. We've got live weather on, and we're talking. We began talking about the opening sequence to the Battle of Waterloo, and it is all around the Chateau of Hougoumont. And it was a number of phases, a seesaw kind of battle going on, and it happens all day long. I just thought we'd have to finish this discussion about Hougoumont, because it will be going on all day long. But what it has done is essentially it manages to occupy Rail's core. The divisions of Jerome, Foy and Waterloo are all drawn into this battle for this chateau down here below us. And there's a belief that Napoleon wanted to do this thing. He tends to do it where he will attack on one side or one flank to pin it. He's essentially trying to force the hand of Wellington to move his reserves down to support Hougoumont, because he knows how paranoid Wellington is about his right flank. He's paranoid about his supply lines to the ports of Ostend and Antwerp being cut, and that would basically be the end of his army. And so he's playing on that by initially sending in Jerome Bonaparte, his brother, by the way. So it's it seems like a sort of a blue ribboned event in the scheme of things, to do his bidding. The problem is what happens is that the hubris of the French, or the lack of imagination of the French Rail's core, means that more and more French troops are drawn in, and we're flying now on this sort of axis. They're drawn in towards this. It's like a sort of a fork that's jabbing you here. This thing that sticks out, this defensive position, and it draws in 14,000 French troops into this area, and the 1,000 odd troops that are inside the chateau. Some of the best troops that Wellington's got, by the way, in terms of light companies, are defending that position, and that position as well is has drawn in something in the region of like 3,500, 4,000 sort of troops. Wellington has sort of given in and has sent them down his some of his best troops. He's sent down 9 companies of the Coldstream Guards, and more of the third foot have moved down into this area. But if we come back and have a look at this, this is the chateau below us. Lots of the support he's been sending down has been coming down here to support this eastern flank, and these orchards are here. So they are within contact distance to back up to the ridge, and they become important later on. Just a quick, so that's Hougoumont then, and we will now, let's talk about the initial bombardment, by the way, that occurred, and the French had a way, it was called a ripple fire technique, And this was designed so that the smoke could clear, so that the gunners could see where they were actually firing at. So they would have a 24 gun bombardment, and it would be in a sort of a ripple effect. And it would allow then the smoke to sort of clear away, and allow the continual firing and observation of targets. They tended to fire shells first to get a range, and then they would then load solid shot afterwards once they had that. Sometimes they would actually load two. They would have shells and a solid shot involved, but normally it would just be, once they got their range in, it would be a solid shot fired. Now what we're looking down here now at the French positions, and the line of artillery would be along this line here, heading across towards, this is La Belle Alliance, so we're looking at the initial positions along this section here. Mercer, by the way, reported in his diary, say that he was actually busy digging up potatoes when he hears the first heavy firing occurring, and they were behind here at the time. He remembers limbering his horses up. Remember, he's a Royal Horse Artillery guy, and he comes up this road. He meets Major Lloyd. He's in a state of agitation, explaining that his brigade's cut to pieces. And Major Lloyd asks him to bring his guns up with him, presumably one of these roads here, to the ridge. He describes at the time, Mercer, as well, that he asks his troops to form a line. He orders his men to dismount and to reduce the liability of being hit by shot and shell that were coming over the ridge and plunging into the soil around them. And this is the point as well where he mentions seeing the Duke of Richmond and his two sons who had come down from Brussels. And remember, the Duke of Richmond was the host of or the Duchess of Richmond was the host of the ball that Wellington was attending on the night of the 15th. Mercer at the time describes being given orders to move up. The Lieutenant Bell, an adjutant, had brought the orders to him. He was to move up and along the hollow behind the second line, and he remembers at this point seeing they were aware of several infantry corps who had lain down, and so presumably what he's being asked to do is to come up essentially to this ridge here. In fact, let's just jump out and and we can see this is the ridge. He was asked to move forward. He comes up from the farm at Mont Saint Jean, which is probably this place here. And as he's coming up in this area, then he's describing literally thousands of men who are lying down, trying to keep out of the way of the bombardment. Says when he was brought up here as well to the ridge, they said that they could see a line of lancers formed up, threatening the right flank. So we're presumably we're talking over here. They describe how they could fire on them if they wanted to, but they were ordered not to return any fire. He described that there was some French artillery to the right of the lancers. And according to the memoir of Napoleon, these lancers are mentioned as being part of the Second Corps, formed up in 3 lines across the causeway from Nivelles, and they were accompanied by a battery of light artillery positioned on the causeway itself at the line of the first woods of Hougoumont. Right, well, what does that mean? So you're talking here Second Corps, Rails Corps. They talk about a causeway. Well, this looks like a sort of a causeway, like a ridge along here. And there's a light artillery position on the causeway itself at the line of the first woods of Hougoumont, which I believe then is probably in this area here. This the woods of Hougoumont is actually where this green rectangle is here. This section here was actually woods, so it would make sense that your artillery would possibly be around here on this ridge. Now this, I'm not sure if this set of trees was here at the time, but we have Mercer presumably somewhere in this region here, who's been brought up from Mont Saint Jean, and he can see those artillery pieces where that green line is across there and in the distance. He describes these artillery by way of Mercer as 4-pounders, and that they were firing on him, but they weren't reaching them. But they were not given orders to fire back. And it's one thing that Wellington didn't like. He didn't like counter-battery fire, because he felt that the French would always win that, and if it came about and it revealed their positions. So he literally wanted his artillery to save their ammunition and wait, not fire on anything over on the other side of the ridge there. They would just wait for the infantry to come to them. Now, Mercer is Royal Horse Artillery, so his kind of job is to sort of ride up and down this the line, trying to go wherever there's a crisis. Though he does describe at this point that these shells are not falling near him, they're falling short. He talks about that if they did get their range right, then the shot was almost like a howitzer shell. But he does also mention that he's getting harassed by artillery coming from his left. So if you're here and you say you're left, it's probably you're talking in this direction here. So we could assume that there was more artillery in this area here, near La Belle Alliance, and they're firing up onto this ridge here. So that this is why the troops behind this ridge are lying down, trying to protect themselves. Okay, so we're gonna leave Hougoumont right now, and so you got a flavour of the battle that's going on over here. You got a flavour of this to and fro thing happening, and Wellington sending down reinforcements when needed, but trying not to do too much. We've heard that Mercer's kind of coming up and looking at this position. So let's go back to probably around about 12 o'clock. So we're talking just after the first attack goes in at Hougoumont, and at 12 o'clock we get the news that a Prussian hussar is captured 3 miles to the east of La Belle Alliance. And so a cannonade has begun, signifying the attack on Hougoumont. I believe that cannonade has started across the whole of the line. And over here then, a Prussian hussar has been captured. So this means at 12 o'clock, Napoleon is in no doubt that his right flank, there is going to be pressure from the Prussians. And even Lieutenant Colonel Weber Smith, he was a trooper in the Royal Horse Artillery. He, in a letter to Captain Walcott, he describes, "We could at this time distinguish a stationary picket or a patrol of Prussians with our glasses at a considerable distance on an eminence to our left." So St. Lambert is this place here with the blue tick. The weather's closing in today, but we'll keep the live weather on for as much as we can. So this is the position where the Prussian hussar is captured at 12 o'clock. So yes, the battle has begun. Is it feasible that Napoleon could delay or stop the attack? Possibly. Now you can see this from this position. This is the Paris Wood, and we come up onto this sort of, I suppose, open plain ridge. Mont Saint Jean Ridge, as you can see now, is on this. If we get down low, we should be able to get, understand why they call it a ridge. You can kind of see how it looks there. So we're talking here now that when this Lieutenant Colonel Weber's Captain Walcott's writes this letter, he must be over this side of the battlefield, and he could see Prussian pickets coming out of the woods over here. So these are the sort of reconnaissance units of the Prussian army. Presumably it's Boulou's corps, and they're the ones who set off early in the morning, and they were trying to get here. So at midday, the pickets have got essentially to those woods just there. Now the cannonade has gone up, the firing's happened, and of course then we have Grouchy, and this is when he hears the first salvos of the battle, and his subordinates urge him to march to the sound of the guns. Now Grouchy refuses, says his orders were explicit. They were confusing, let's put it that way. They weren't very clear, but because of Napoleon's way of setting up his corps and his sort of semi-independent system of command, Grouchy sometimes wouldn't be completely in understanding of the whole situation, the sort of strategic situation that Napoleon wanted. And of course, remember, anything that happens here, the information that gets to Grouchy now, it probably won't make any difference. Now, Grouchy is over here in the distance, and what we could do is we could just fly over there. He's at Walheim, and actually I'll get a map up here so you guys can see how far that is. So Waterloo is number 6, and Lasner here is Chapelle Saint-Lambert. This is where the Prussian Hussar is found at 12 o'clock, and this is the Ohain is probably where the edge of the wood, the Paris Wood, is where the Prussian pickets are seen. And when Grouchy hears the guns, he's here at a place called Walheim. He'd moved up to this crossroads on the evening before, and he was now moving north towards Wavre itself. So he's 16 odd miles away at this point. So you could argue that even if he set off straight away at 12 o'clock, he's probably not going to affect the battlefield today anyway. Let's head over to see where he was, and we'll finish this part of the stream when we get to Walheim. So he gets chastised over the years for his caution. Let's think about what he's got. He's got about 30,000 men, and he's following an army of 75,000 men, trying to find out where they're from, where they're going. He doesn't know. He's accidentally moved further east, I believe, than he should have done. He should have immediately gone north rather than chased anything to his south, because they weren't going to be a part of the problem. But he was ordered to follow the Prussians, and he even said that he was following them to Wavre. He could have immediately cut across, but it would have been difficult terrain. This is the terrain we're flying over now. It's difficult terrain, trees, deep valleys, and swollen rivers. Remember, it had been raining a lot, just like it is now. And remember, by around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Grouchy's probably pleased with what he's achieved. I mean, he's been following the Prussian army. He gets to Wavre. We'll see what happens, but essentially he manages to defeat the corps of Thielmann's third corps of the Prussian army. And he's had a pretty successful day, apart from he hasn't managed to prevent 3 corps of Prussian armies joining up with the French, with the Wellington. And any message coming across here from Napoleon is going to take at least 4 hours to get over here. So essentially the move that Grouchy had done the previous night meant that he was not going to get across to Napoleon. And so you'd actually sort of say, okay, well, to be honest, if that's the case, Napoleon should have been aware of that and made his decision whether to attack on the 18th based on that. So Walheim is actually here, so you can see the distances involved. And you're asking for him not only to come to your aid at Waterloo, you're also asking for him to essentially be marching across the front of the Prussians. So, in my personal view, I think the orders that Grouchy were given weren't clear enough. When they were given, they weren't very clear. They were they could be open to interpretation. Grouchy probably wasn't an experienced corps commander, and he wasn't told to march towards the sound of the guns, and so he's definitely made out as a scapegoat, I would say. So we get to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Marshal Ney reports to Napoleon to say that de Erlon's preparation, this is the corps that's on the right-hand side of Napoleon's front, they are ready to assault. And when we come back, then we'll start talking about the attack of the French First Corps under d'Erlon. We will be back in a few minutes if you're watching on Twitch Live and YouTube Live. If not on YouTube, I'll see you in the next part. We have follow a goal. We're on 74 75 at the moment on Twitch. So actually, we may be now on 76. But it seems to be very important that Twitch gets me to 80. That would be lovely if you could do that. On YouTube, we're on about 30 at the moment. So again, if you'd like to subscribe, you will be one of the early people who will be pioneers in this channel's history. And you can always call yourself special, and I will always call you special. And I will see you in a couple of minutes, and we will come back with the from at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the Battle of Waterloo. See you in a moment.